In 1973, Harrison Ford and Paul Le Mat pulled a cruel stunt on a young Ron Howard. They tossed bottles toward his car and trapped him inside a trailer, taunting him with what he would later describe as Opie shaming. It was mean-spirited, and it didn't stop there. For 50 years, Howard kept quiet about those shadows in Hollywood. Now he's speaking plainly about near catastrophes on his sets, lawsuits that bled budgets dry, and private strains that almost broke his marriage. America's most dependable director is finally opening up about the pain behind the career. Ronald William Howard arrived on March the 1st, 1954 in Duncan, Oklahoma. His dad, Rance, actor and writer, was hustling for steady work. His mom, Jean, acted as well. Cash was short and prospects uncertain. In 1958, when Ron was 4, the Howards stuffed their belongings into a car and aimed for Hollywood with nothing promised. They crammed into a small place in Burbank, scrambling to pay rent, while their red-headed boy learned his ABCs on a soundstage instead of a preschool carpet. That move didn't just change where they slept. It quietly reset the course of their lives. On January 1st, 1956, at just 18 months old, Ron made a tiny appearance in Frontier Woman. The set needed a baby, and he crawled into the shot. His father had only recently left the Air Force, and money was scarce. By July 15, 1956, Ron had even done live theater. Still, his parents drew a line: no long-term contracts before age 5. That principle nearly sank them. In 1957, Rance considered quitting the business and going back to Oklahoma to farm. They stayed, pawning what they had, convinced boundaries would protect their son. The rule stuck: no full-time acting until 5. So in 1957 and 1958, they turned down work even when rent loomed. By late 1958, they almost fled Hollywood, but didn't. In 1959, Ron turned 5, and things finally shifted. He landed The Journey, earning his first credit. The welcome wasn't universal. Crew members mocked the freckled redhead. One called him a freckle-faced freak. It hurt. Rance, on that same set, confronted the heckler and almost lost his own job. Still, the $2,500 paycheck was lifeblood. That year, baby brother Clint arrived on April 20th. Debt lingered, about $5,000 in today's value, but the Howards kept. Ron in public school and tried to preserve a normal childhood. Then came the life changer. In 1960, Ron became Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show. He was 6. Over 300 kids read. His warmth and ease won it. The show debuted October 3, 1960, ran 249 episodes, and Ron appeared in 243. He started at $300 per episode and finished at $1,000 in 1968. The job demanded adult discipline. Long hours, heavy dialogue, and precise timing without a live audience. He learned on the fly. Viewers found comfort in Mayberry. Behind the scenes, a kid learned how to be a pro. His bond with Andy Griffith became the compass. Mentor, teacher, protector, Andy talked through scenes, coached emotions, and guarded Ron's confidence. There were rough moments. Andy sometimes drank and could blow up after a harsh review, which frightened a little boy. But the kindness prevailed. In 1997, Andy visited Ron on a set in Queens. After 2012, the families discovered they were distant cousins, a gentle coda to a friendship that began when Ron was 6. Danger was real. In 1962, filming a lake scene, 8-year-old Ron fell into the water when a small boat tipped. Andy jumped straight in and dragged him out. Producers buried the incident to protect the show's image. Child safety rules were thin then. Kids worked late. Accidents happened. That scare stayed with Ron. When he stepped behind the camera, safety stopped being optional. When Mayberry ended in 1968, Ron was 14 and found himself typecast. Between 1968 and 1969, he endured over 50 failed auditions. He grabbed what he could: Gentle Ben in 1969 for $500 an episode, spare change next to Mayberry. In 1970, he lost the lead in The Wild Country. He joined the Smith family in 1971, earning $8,000 for 39 episodes. The series fizzled. He hid the stress and played high school basketball, averaging 12 points. In 1972, he chased normal teen life while feeling stuck. Then, 1973, flipped the script At 19, he won a role in American Graffiti, directed by George Lucas, shooting in California starting in June. Magic on paper, rough in reality. Harrison Ford and Paul Le Mat needled him for being a former child star. On July 15th, bottles clinked near his car as they shouted, "Dance, Opie, dance!" On July 20th, they locked him in a trailer and cost him rehearsal time. They even spiked his drinks. Ron kept quiet, later calling it his lone bout of Opie shaming. He finished the job and earned $10,000. Years later, Ford apologized. The sting remained. Rewind to 1970. Ron met Cheryl Alley in high school. First date November 1st, a movie and pizza. By December, rumors claimed Cheryl was pregnant. They were 16. In January 1971, he denied it in the school paper. By February, tabloids had seized the story. He even lost a $2,000 guest spot over the gossip. They stayed together anyway. Ron proposed 3 times. She said yes in October 1974. They married on June 7, 1975, and they've shared 50 years since. He still calls her his good luck charm. Money was tight after Mayberry. In January 1971, he took a paper route, $150 a month, throwing 200 papers before school so he could treat Cheryl. On April 5, 1971, a truck rear-ended him en route to an audition. Whiplash, postponed work, and $3,000 in medical bills, no insurance. He sold his bike for $200. The pain lingered and even affected his movement on camera later. American Graffiti exploded in 1973, $115 million domestic on a lean, $7,000 budget. Ron's pay, a flat $10,000, no back end. He asked George Lucas for 1%, worth over $1 million, and was refused. The friendship frayed. For stability, he joined Happy Days in 1974 at $1,000 an episode. The gig steadied him and nudged him toward directing. He began as Richie Cunningham in January 1974. The pilot aired January 15th to 11 million viewers. Early on, the show is Richie's slice of 1950s Milwaukee. By 1976, Fonzie, played by Henry Winkler, was the phenomenon. Ratings soared 31 million a week. ABC floated, renaming it Fonzie's Happy Days to boost merchandising. Fonzie gear alone topped over $1 million in 1976. Ron pushed back. He'd fronted the series from day one and felt edged out. In November 1976, he told producers he'd walk if they changed the title, even with a contract through 1980. When Variety leaked the fight on December 5th, more than 10,000 letters hit ABC. The title stayed. Ron stayed. But the dynamic had shifted. By 1977, the show grossed $50 million a year. Ron earned $25,000 per episode. Winkler earned $75,000. In a 1980 interview, Ron said that disparity nudged him toward the director's chair. Tensions flared. In 1976 in Samemben, at peak popularity, castmates bickered over lines and pay. Anson Williams' Potsy made $12,000 per episode, half runs, and took it hard. On November 16, 1976, during The Muckrakers, Williams reportedly stormed off after Gary Marshall rewrote a scene toward Ron. Rumors of a physical dust-up swirled. Nothing proved. ABC smoothed it over to protect the $50 million franchise. Years later, in 2012, Williams and others sued CBS for $10 million over unpaid merch, 5 million lunchboxes sold in 1976 alone. On April 4, 2012, the case settled. Each received $65,000. Williams said he never hit $100,000 a year, while the studio minted millions. Ron wasn't part of the suit, but in a 2025 interview, he admitted those battles nearly wrecked friendships. Meanwhile, he was easing into directing. In early 1975, during a 2-week March hiatus, he shot a 10-minute short, Deed of Daring Do, for $2,000. Henry Winkler cameoed. It premiered June 15, 1975, at a small festival. A whisper about plagiarism surfaced. Nothing stuck. Copyright rules were muddy. A 1976 fanfic case pushed others to settle for up to $5,000, but Ron wasn't implicated. Producer Roger Corman requested reshoots on April 20, 1975, adding $500 and nearly breaking the budget. The film won a small prize at the Atlanta Film Festival on September 10th. That confidence led to his featured debut, Grand Theft Auto 1977, budget $600,000, gross $15 million. Ron and Cheryl married on June 7, 1975 in Burbank, a simple $800 ceremony with about 300 guests. Henry Winkler was best man. Cheryl's father footed the bill. Though Ron was making $25,000 per episode, he wanted modest. They slipped away to Hawaii for 2 weeks starting June 8, 1975. Tabloids later floated rumors, especially in 1977, without evidence. The ugliest came October 15, 1978, when the National Enquirer ran false cheating claims. Ron called it humiliating. In a 2025 interview, he laughed that their 50th anniversary present was a kissing chair to remember their early days. By July 1980, he took the leap. He left Happy Days. The show still drew $20 million weekly, but ABC refused to let him direct TV movies and offered $100,000 for 3 more years. He declined. On July 20th, 1980, he signed with NBC for $1 million and full creative control. Departing just before Season 8 aired September 9th, 1980. In August, 15,000 letters begged ABC to bring Richie back. Ron later said the network treated him like an eagle snatching a baby. His first post-sitcom feature, Night Shift, 1982, earned $21 million. Happy Days slipped 30% without Richie, but ran to 1984, tallying 255 episodes. Directing carried real risk. During Grand Theft Auto 1977, a car stunt failed. Stuntman Paul Bartel suffered broken bones and internal injuries. Ron feared his career was over before it began. The suit settled in 1978, he never forgot, and made safety non-negotiable afterward. Splash, 1984, hit theaters on March 9th with an $11 million budget and earned $69. $8 million rocketing Tom Hanks to stardom. Behind the scenes, tempers flared. On July 15, 1983 in New York, Hanks exploded over script changes. Shouting followed. Ron stepped between sides before punches flew. The studio nearly killed the project. Disney revived it under a touchstone. On Cocoon, 1985, a fired extra, Harold Jenkins, sent death threats on February 12th. Angry, the film mocked elders. Fox brought in 24-hour security for $150,000. The script softened. Release moved to June 21st. It still hit $85 million and earned Oscars for Donna Mecha and visual effects. Willow arrived May the 20th, 1988. George Lucas conceived it back in 1972. Ron directed for $35 million. It grossed $137, $6 million worldwide, but lost about $20 million after heavy marketing and cool reviews. In June 1987, Lucas and Howard clashed over $5 million in cuts. Ron nearly quit. Home video eventually pushed it to break even. Parenthood opened August 2nd, 1989, born from a chaotic Australia flight when Ron's 4-year-old daughter threw up sushi on him mid-air. Budget $20 million, box office $126 million. A month earlier, writer Elena Vasquez sued for theft. They settled in June for $500,000, narrowly avoiding a shutdown. Backdraft 1991 turned into a battle with real fire. On July 23, 1990, a blaze raced out of control, burning Kurt Russell's hand and face and injuring 3 crew. OSHA cited serious violations. Ron later said, "You never know when the fire will turn on you." The movie still earned a $152 million and scored an effects nomination. Apollo 13 launched June 30, 1995, pulling $355 million worldwide, but the shoot was tense. Tom Hanks demanded NASA-level accuracy. On October 12, 1994, he insisted on rewrites. By October 15th, production shut down, losing $2 million. On October 18th, Ron threatened to walk. NASA stepped in to mediate. The film won 1996 Oscars for editing and sound. Ransom, 1996, opened November 8th, reaching $309 million. During filming, life echoed art. On February 14th, letters threatened Ron's children. The FBI tapped phones. Suspicious cars appeared. The family moved on March 5th. There were no arrests. Suspects left the state by April. Ron later called it his most personal thriller. How the Grinch Stole Christmas 2000 landed on November 17th with Jim Carrey. It earned $345 million, but the 2.5-hour daily makeup ground tempers down. On March 22nd, Carrey snapped and shoved Ron. Filming paused for a day. By April, amends were made. The film won the 2001 Oscar for makeup. A Beautiful Mind, 2001, arrived December 21st, telling John Nash's story. It reached $313 million and took Best Picture and Best Director on March 24, 2002. The set was volatile. Russell Crowe erupted more than once, even hurling a phone at a hotel clerk on June 10th. On April 15th, Ron fired him, then rehired him 2 days later to avoid burning $500,000 per day. Jennifer Connelly later credited Ron with keeping chaos in check. Then came the Da Vinci Code, 2006 storm. The film enraged religious groups worldwide, especially the Catholic Church, over its storyline involving Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and Opus Dei. Protests broke out. In India, calls for a ban. In the Philippines, adults only. Ron received death threats. After a bomb scare at Cannes on May 17th, he hired bodyguards. Critics booed and laughed at the premiere. On February 14th, Opus Dei pressed Sony to add a fiction disclaimer and called the movie a twisted portrayal of the church. U.S. bishops launched Jesus Decoded, and labeled it morally offensive. Even so, it earned $760 million worldwide. Ron later admitted the hostility wore him down. In Italy, he and Dan Brown nearly got arrested over permits. The Vatican called it anti-Catholic and warned people off, ironically boosting curiosity. Solo, a Star Wars story, 2017-2018, was another tightrope. After Phil Lord and Chris Miller were fired in June 2017, Ron took over and reshot roughly 70% of the film between late June and mid-October to meet a May 2018 release. The budget swelled to $275 million. Leaks claimed he sanded off the movie's wilder humor for a classic Star Wars tone. Petitions circulated. Tempers rose over unused footage. Some actors, like Alden Ehrenreich, needed coaching to find the character. The date shifted. Lord and Miller accepted executive producer credits. The film pulled $393 million, below expectations, and debate raged. Did Ron steady the ship or play safe? Angels and Demons, 2009, brought fresh tension. On May 3rd, Ron said the Vatican quietly blocked permits, forcing expensive set builds. He believed the silent boycott cost $50 million. Later, church voices called it harmless after refusing support. Archbishop Velasio de Paulis warned in April that protests can backfire. Exactly as with Da Vinci, William Donahue urged correcting errors rather than boycotts. Some churches denied access because of the murders in the plot. The film still reached $485 million. Tom Hanks said the goal was curiosity. The Vatican was largely quiet this time. In 2015, Imagine Entertainment faced a serious suit tied to The Good Lie, 2014. 54 Sudanese refugees filed a 101-page complaint in Atlanta on February 19th, alleging their trauma, starvation, and militia escapes was used without fair compensation after a promised $55,000 and aid. Starring Reese Witherspoon, the movie opened October 3rd, but plaintiffs said the money never came. Producers Bobby Newmeyer and Mike Nagel were named. The case settled in 2017 under seal. Ron wasn't personally named, but backlash was sharp. Domestic box office was $32 million, and the real-life pain behind the story weighed heavily. On Rush, 2013, recreating Niki Lauda's 1976 Formula One Inferno, a stunt failed. On August the 1st, at the Nürburgring, a suspension broke and the car crashed, eerily close to the true event. Stunt driver David Crowder sued, citing ignored safety. A 2014 settlement followed. Worse, Sean Edwards, the stunt coordinator's son, died in a car crash 18 days after the September 27th release. Ron was subpoenaed and grilled about a $38 million budget. Reporting language was muddled, possibly skimping on safety. The film earned $90 million. Some said it glamorized danger, especially using real footage of Lauda's injuries. By August 2025, daughter Bryce Dallas Howard met the Nepo baby debate directly. Born March 2, 1981, she told Happy Sad. Confused, she knew she had advantages. Dad Ron, Uncle Clint, 1959, Grandpa Rance, 1928-2017, and Grandma Jean, 1927-2000, were all in the industry. She said doors opened, and that she worked hard once inside. Fans split. BuzzFeed praised her candor in 2025. A charming note. Henry Winkler is her godfather. By then, she'd directed films and starred in Jurassic World, which earned over $6 billion in 2015. Ron's father, Rance Howard, died November 25, 2017 at 89 after heart failure following West Nile virus. Born Harold Beckenholt on November 17, 1928, he began acting in 1949 and appeared in over 140 films and 177 TV episodes, Chinatown, Nebraska, and more. Ron and Clint wrote a heartfelt people tribute, saying their father's love of the craft changed their family's fate. Rumors of a will dispute fizzled, no proof. The brothers remained close. Ron often tweeted how lucky he felt to have Clint. They'd worked together since Grand Theft Auto, 1977. Rance kept working until the end. He finished a role 36 hours before he died. Ron and Cheryl marked 50 years on June 7, 2025. They met at John Burroughs High in Burbank. First date, November 1st, 1970. It's a mad, 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 mad world in pizza. On Instagram, Ron thanked her for weathering every chapter. They raised 4 children, Bryce, 1981, twins Paige and Jocelyn, 1980, and Reed, 1987, and had 6 grandkids by 2025. Rumors of a near divorce in the 1980s over work have never been confirmed. Recent comments show a steady, grateful marriage. In 2020, Ron said there was never anyone else. They even recreated their first date in their 1970 VW Bug. Cheryl is now the doting, rule-bending grandmother. He hasn't sidestepped controversy. The Dilemma, 2011, released January 14th, included a line where Vince Vaughn's character calls electric cars gay, as in lame. GLAAD and Ellen DeGeneres condemned it, particularly after Tyler Clementi's September 2010 suicide. Universal removed the line from trailers on October 30th, but Ron left it in the film, arguing it fit the character and that comedy shouldn't be scoured clean. He told the BBC in January he hadn't predicted the reaction, though he later acknowledged the harm the word can do. Anderson Cooper and GLAAD called it a dangerous slur. Ron said he values sensitivity but won't flatten authentic dialogue. The movie earned $69.7 million, with that line still debated. Hillbilly Elegy landed on Netflix on November 24, 2020, adapted from J.D. Vance's memoir. Amy Adams played the mother. Glenn closed the grandmother, earning both an Oscar nod and a Razzie nod. Budget $45 million. Critics clocked it at 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences rated it 82%. In August 2025, Ron told Vulture he was stunned when Vance joined the 2024 ticket as Trump's running mate. Vance seemed moderate while filming in 2018-2019, and in 2016 had called Trump reprehensible. Ron said he sent a cool text on November 6, 2024. Congrats, but disappointment. He called the movie a mixed bag, poor reviews, strong audience response, and the real shock was Vance's changed values. Eden, 2025, premiered at TIFF on September 7th, formerly Origin of the Species, starring Jude Law, Ana de Armas, Vanessa Kirby, Danielle Brühl, and Sydney Sweeney. Inspired by a wild 1920s Galapagos tale of jealousy and murder, it shot from November 27, 2023 to February 14, 2024, mostly in Queensland with island plates. The budget began at $55 million and dropped to $35 million thanks to Australian tax breaks. In an August 25th interview,